Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Justin Jabbar is on. How's everyone today?
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you. Melissa, I'm going to switch to my phone. So if you see another request for login, don't be scared. Okay. I'll shut this one down afterwards.
Okay, sounds good.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, John.
Hey, Bill.
Morning, William.
Morning.
Hi.
Everyone today.
Chilly.
Yeah, and it's going to get chillier, Dave.
I just saw a huge fox run through my backyard.
Oh, Durr should have shot it.
Big red one, John.
Yep,
Yeah.
real big.
I see it over on Wyomissing Boulevard there at the circle. I've seen it
Yeah.
run through there, right down from your place.
Yeah. He looked healthy and big. What we got here, Woody? What we got here, Woody? Hey, Melissa, are we expecting anyone else?
It looks like we have pretty many of the people that were expected.
Okay. Well, I think it's 8 o'clock at this point. Why don't we call the meeting to order? Roll call, please, Melissa.
John Woodward,
Here.
Dave Bauscher,
Here.
Fred Levering,
Here.
Bill Jenks,
Here.
Heath Durr,
Here,
and Greg Portner said he would be absent today.
Okay, thank you. The first order of business is to reorganize the committee. Do we have any?
I'll make a motion with John Woodward, chair of this committee.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, we all in favor of John Woodward remaining as chair, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, one and all. Is there any public comment?
Yes, I want to say a few words shortly. You guys hear me, right?
Yeah.
It's regarding the meeting last time. There's a lot of noise. Meeting last time about that extra exit for the Burlington Coat Factory, and it's frustrating how only focused on business to the detriment of residents. You guys are. It is obvious over there. You last time you said, "Oh, the engineers would tell us." No, the consultant engineer will give you what you want. You want a third entry, you will get a third entry. He wants your business, and if that causes extra congestion on Woodland Road, Woodland, I think it is. Fine, he's gonna get a different contract next time to clean that up. So I don't think it sounds ridiculous that the whims of a business to come in, we just bend to that, and that artery over there is congested at Christmas and at other holidays and shopping times. It's impossible to drive as it is, and every kid knows that if you put another entry, you're going to create another bottleneck. Let alone the one that has only a right turn and people don't see it fast enough, and then they have to go. If they want to turn left, either they're going to do an illegal turn, which is what happens in many other instances that are done like that. Most notably at Fromouth over there in the Sinking Spring. That's what happens over there, or they go down the road and turn in the middle of the road or in some other parking lot. That doesn't solve anything. So I don't think that's a good idea. That strip mall, it's outdated, and another entry is not gonna make things better. I think we need some bold vision. I need something better than this. This is my opinion, so I will give my time now.
Thank you, Mr. Jadik. Is there anyone else? Okay, Michelle, could you introduce our friends from the Crown Plaza, please?
Sure. Eric Schock, who attended the December special meeting of this committee, is here along with multiple attendees that were part of the December meeting also to talk about the potential redevelopment of the Crown Plaza Hotel. Eric, are you on the call?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm off mute now. Good morning. Thanks for your time again, and Happy New Year. We supplied an updated version of the proposal, and I gave a list to Michelle of the additional information that was included, which was an attempt to address the questions that arose. The folks from the developer, along with a representative of Crown Plaza, are here and can certainly answer questions about the additional info or anything else that you may have. The only thing I will add that is not in the materials we supplied, because it took a little bit more time to gather, is there was a question, I believe, raised by the borough engineer about possibly needing HOPs if the driveways are not permitted at this time, and this would constitute a change of use. So the developer did go out and retain McMahon traffic engineers, and at this point, the information we've gotten from McMahon is a fairly straightforward ITE analysis of trip generation to show that this use actually, under the ITE manual, would generate less trips than the pre-COVID hotel would as per ITE. So that was a positive obviously in a traffic engineer's mind. Second, they concluded that it would be the same type of driveway in terms of the volume. So at this point, they're fairly comfortable that the one engineering issue that was raised would be, something, obviously, they'd have to work through it with PennDOT and do more work, but they don't see that as being an impediment if something like this were to be approved by the borough for this site. So at this point, then I'd say I can certainly have my clients talk in more detail now about the adult daycare use and the development team and those questions. Or, if the committee would like, I certainly would say my clients and the hotel owner will answer questions that you may have that are new or raised by the new materials.
So are you just looking for questions, or are you looking to present something new at this point?
Well, we can certainly run through the material, the new materials. Let me just make sure who is on. Andy.
Sure.
Yeah. If you could, can you address for the committee some of the items that you've added based upon the questions that arose last time?
Sure. So the deck in front of you have is very similar to what you saw last time. We just added a few slides and included some more information regarding the adult daycare and our hotel operator, Commonwealth Hotels. Some additional statistics in there as well. We've also included actually the founder and operator of Sarah Care, Merle Griff, on the line as well. She could answer any additional questions you might have about licensure, about operations, about staffing levels, specific programs that are within the facility itself. We decided to outline them in the deck as well, so you have that for record, so you know exactly what's in there. Can we just go to the next page, please, if you don't mind? Just keep scrolling down. Keep going. This hasn't changed much. So this slide, sorry, can you go back one, please? Slide 3. This slide here has some more information, some clarifications about the program, what we're doing, the age of the residents of the building. So that's just basically clarified for your own, edification. The second paragraph was the major area of change, and just sort of owned in on the original plan. The deck previously had some mention of education that we intend having in other facilities. As I mentioned, we have about 30 projects that are active around the country. We have several, so I'm just fixing my window here. We have several projects that are much bigger campuses that have educational component, vocational training, student dormitory housing. So we took some of that information out of here to be, to clarify a little bit. The hotel is a little bit smaller. They're about 200,000 square feet. So some of those educational components are not going to be necessarily as front and center as the housing and adult daycare will be. All right, so let's keep going. Next slide, please. Trying to minimize my Zoom window here. Here we go. Okay, good. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, keep going. Keep going, keep going. So Merrill is actually on the call here, so we'll get a chance to have it speak a little bit. Keep going, please. Keep going. Next slide. All right, so there are a few slides here. Sorry, go back. Sorry. Go back. There we go. Okay. So here you'll see the bios of our real estate development team. So you have a few more people that are included in here that are much more focused on the real estate and redevelopment. Previously, the deck only included bios for people that are more on the operations side, the nonprofit component of the company. You can see here who else is behind the scenes putting together the financing, the design and construction, as well as the entitlement process. So, keep going, please. Okay, keep going. All right, so then we also clarified, there are essentially a few bullet points throughout the slide that we've cleaned up just to clarify and own in on the business plan. Again, this is meant to be age-restricted, income-restricted housing, as we discussed last time. So anything that, has any confusion or any issues that you addressed, we've, just sort of sharpened our pencil a little bit. If you keep going, please. All right, and then this is just a few more slides on affordable housing. If you keep going. All right, and then we'll clarify, as you asked, the kind of services that we provide within the adult daycare facility, specifically. So you can see there's a list below there. So daily care monitoring, diabetic care, blood pressure monitoring, medication administration, weight and vitals, dressing changes, and regular contact with physicians that will be available on site for the adult daycare visitors. And again, this is meant to be open to the residents in the building. Obviously, it's a convenient item to have. If you have folks that are living there that want to socialize or have some other, therapeutic or counseling type of services available, they could just literally walk downstairs and, they'll be in the facility. It will be a two-minute commute. Otherwise, it'll be open to the community as well. So if there are people that are, interested in taking advantage of this facility, as long as they, we have enough room, we'll gladly accept them. Keep going, please. All right, and there's some more information here about the SarahCare operator. And again, I'll let Merrill speak a little bit more, so you guys have a chance to hear from the founder rather than from a real estate developer. If you don't mind, keep going, please. All right, and then some licensure information you were asking about previously about adult daycare, what's specific to Pennsylvania. So there's some more information here. Now let's keep going and there's some more information here, the operational structure, the size of the facility, and again, the design still being formulated. We actually have George Marks on the call as well, who's our architect of record. He's from Pennsylvania as well. He and Merle are still working on finalizing the size and the exact location, but it's going to be between 5,000 to 6,000 square feet roughly to accommodate the needs that we have for this particular facility. Keep going, please. All right, and some more information about the life. Keep going, please. And then some clarification about memory care and mental care. So we just want to make sure it's clear. And I think maybe I'll pause here and let Merle shed a little more light on SarahCare and the specifics of the program.
Hi, good morning.
There you are.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Good morning. Thank you very much for letting me talk about SarahCare. I always love to talk about SarahCare and the role of adult daycare in the continuum of care. So this was a specific question. Oh, by the way, let me tell you, this is actually going to be daycare center number 6 for us in the state of Pennsylvania. We like operating in the state of Pennsylvania. It's been a good state for us. So this was a question on memory care versus mental care. We are not a day treatment mental health center. I'm a psychologist, and I can tell you that that is not our purpose for this center. This center is designed, as all our centers are, throughout the 13 states that we're in, for seniors who may be very frail and need some assistance during the day, to seniors who may have had Parkinson's disease or a stroke. For some reason, their families feel as though they need some type of care or supervision during the day. And they go home at night. So they come to us. We're open from 7 in the morning till 6 at night to accommodate people and family caregivers who are working. They come to us during the day. They have friends, they have lots of fun, they have great food, and our nurses are there. We're staffed with RNs and LPNs, so our nurses are there to take care of their health needs during the day. But we are not a mental health day treatment center. So if someone has a history of schizophrenia, that is not who our center accepts. We're really after seniors who are either very frail and have some health-related problems. They could have Alzheimer's disease or some form of dementia, but not a primary diagnosis of mental health. Are there any questions about that or comments?
Does it include PAT, the post-traumatic stress disorder?
Yes, we will take, and we've served proudly many, many veterans who have PTSD. we have to be very careful in their care and they usually fit in very well. There's usually a comorbidity with PTSD and a senior veteran with dementia often. And so we have a separate area and special programming to accommodate them. We also have men's groups in most of our, and actually in all of our centers. And we also have veteran-specific groups in all of our centers. We are not designed, though, to take a 30-year-old with PTSD. If we're asked to do that, we do it on a case-by-case basis, but that is not our primary population that we're serving. We really are serving seniors. And for us, that means 55 and above.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
On the Crown Plaza property itself, how many daycare patients do you estimate seeing per day? Average, roughly.
About 55 to 60 a day, which is average for us. What that usually means is that represents about 100 to 120 people who are enrolled, because not every senior comes every day. We have people who come 5 days a week. We have people who come 2 days a week. But we know what our demographics are, and we've looked at the demographics for this hotel property. And so we know even if no one came from the senior high-rise, which is unlikely, but if no one did, we still have enough population of seniors to support the daycare center.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The adult daycare is just one component of the overall project. How many of projects like this are completed and up and running using this business model with a combination of all the different uses?
Well, I can just speak for SarahCare. In SarahCare, we are in, not with this particular set of developers, but we are in other senior high-rise buildings. We do a lot with EDOC. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They have properties throughout the country, including Pittsburgh. And we have SarahCare centers within those buildings that are serving senior high-rises.
I guess the question was more for the developers as opposed to just
sorry.
the adult daycare.
Okay.
But I mean, no, that's fine. I just curious as to the number of projects that are completed and up and running with this business model.
So happy to do so. In this particular mix of uses, this is we have a portfolio of distressed hotel assets that we're developing around the country, about 20 of these. Opportunity didn't really exist prior to COVID to develop a plan. So this is this particular mix of uses is new to us, but the overall or individual components are not, right? So if you our backgrounds, most of us have multifamily, affordable housing, and traditional market rate minimum rental experience, as well as a mixed use, commercial, urban, and suburban development. So, we've done this before. The only real difference here is, we have a very good relationship with our tenant. Instead of developing a white box retail space, we have a relationship with someone who's coming in day zero and helping us design the building, not just the interior of the space. So that's really the only difference, compared to any other development project.
If I can, just to follow up on Mr. Durr's question, because I didn't ask this last week. So, how many just of this type facility that you're proposing for the Ground Plaza, how many of those are up and running? Are there any?
Like I said before, this was I'm sorry, can you guys hear me okay? I'm not sure if my mic is working. Okay, it's good. Okay, never mind. So like I said, there are 20 of these that are in pre-development around the country, everywhere from Tulsa to Pocatello to Texas, Austin, Houston, you name it. They were all acquired right after COVID. So as you can imagine, from April through now, it's we've had quite a bit of a buying spree, and they're all have architects assigned to them. They have they're either gone through rezoning, going through building permits, or they're in the rezoning phase like we are here. So we're all in pre-development. This particular
Okay.
business model.
Okay, so the answer is what you're proposing for the Crown Plaza, while you have purchased properties, there's none of these up and running at this time.
Correct, but let me just stress it again. This is not a novel concept. The mixed use hotel residential development is pretty common. The only difference here really is the fact that we have a commercial tenant who we have identified prior, and a tenant that's an amenity to the residents that are going to be living in the building. That is not a novel concept. It's almost the same as having a grocery anchor tenant living, below a residential building, right? It's an amenity to the residents. It helps everybody, and it leads to more, harmonic. It's more harmonious development. So that's really the idea. We're just thinking about all the moving pieces, making sure that they all work together well in advance of, putting the shovel in the ground, if you will. And again, our mission really has been focusing on developing housing for senior veterans. The adult daycare component, just a good fit programmatically. We have the extra space. It just makes logical sense to bring them in as a partner across the portfolio.
And if I could just add, as I said before, we have done this in many other properties. And it works very, very well, because part of the problem is that there are seniors living and veterans living in the apartments who begin to need some extra help and some extra support during the day. Home care really is not enough for them. And they get very, very isolated and very lonely. They begin to withdraw. It impacts their health status. They really have a lot of problems. And so when we come into senior high rises and we open our adult day center and we go after those people and bring them to our centers, we find we get really amazing results. Their health improves, their cognition, their memory improves. We work very, very closely with the senior high-rise staff. And so even on the days we're not open, there's still programs going on. And those seniors become less isolated because they've now found friends and they have support for each other. And so we've done this many times, and I can tell you, we've researched this, we have data on this. And the data clearly shows that when the senior high-rise and the adult daycare are working together, people actually become less depressed, and cognitively, they actually improve.
Right. So if there are no more questions on this slide, I'd like to keep moving in the interest of time, if you don't mind.
I apologize for that. I think I locked up and had to come back in.
Oh, you're back? Okay, good. Okay.
I did get your answer. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, I can't tell if you could hear me or not. I'm screaming into my laptop, so I apologize if I'm a little echoey here.
And later on in the deck, Commonwealth Hotels are some of the CVs and the experience by our partners is in there. So you'll see how the depth and width of that. So anyway, I didn't mean to jump in. Go ahead.
If you don't mind going to the next slide, please. I want to make sure you guys catch the rest of it. There's a few more. So you've seen these already before. These are the larger hospital campuses that I've mentioned. We're having great progress there in New Jersey. Another hotel is being redeveloped downtown. If you don't mind, I'll keep going. Similar to Crown Plaza in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, there you go. Keep going. So the proposal you've seen, there's a slide that was out of order here, but the hotel management team is important to highlight here as well. Commonwealth Hotels is a very experienced operator. They're based in Ohio. Going to the rest of their portfolio. And their expertise really is limited service hotels. They run hotels very efficiently. They are able to, really above market occupancy rates and, overall profit margins, which is important for us, obviously, too. But more importantly, sustainable business plan. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of reverb here. It's a sustainable business plan that will help the hotel stay open and maintain all of the common areas that you're accustomed to having, the meeting spaces, the convention space, and some of the food and beverage services that are provided on site will be overhauled and cleaned up, but they will stay intact. So you have that option as well whenever you have special events and items that need bigger space. So that will maintain intact. If you keep going, please. You could see some of their expertise and how they perform against the rest of the market. And I'm happy to include them in the next call if you'd like, have one of the representatives join. Keep going, please. And I think this is just the floor plans. Keep going, please. So this hasn't changed actually. So George Kramer Marks is here with us in case you have any questions for the architect, but generally speaking, we're in schematic design mode now. I've identified our AOR, architect of record, but we're also looking to build the rest of our design team. We have a traffic engineer on board now. We have several other engineers that we're interviewing for other components of the project. We're moving forward, but obviously we'd love to get your feedback before we get too far ahead. So the design is, I guess it hasn't changed since the last time you saw it, the overall concept master plan. But wanted to see if you have any additional feedback before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
Andy, one question. Melissa, can you go back one page, please? Okay, in reference to the signage where right now it says Crown Plaza, you're proposing Veteran Services USA. Would there be any other signage of identifying this as also a hotel?
Yes, there will be. There will be. This is a very conceptual, early
Understand.
photoshopped rendering here. We are talking to several hotel brands. It's a very good question, actually. We're talking to IHG and several other hotel brands to see if they would either keep the Crown Plaza intact or potentially bring in a different limited service hotel brand that may be more suitable for the size and location. So that's still in the works. We have several different conversations happening at the same time. Ideally, it would be easier for everybody to keep the Crown Plaza name intact, just so people aren't confused. But it's really up to the brand and their standards. So there will be some signage for the hotel. I imagine they'll probably want a more prominent sign. We don't need a big prominent sign, frankly. It's a permanent address, not a transient residence. As long as there's some identification for the entrance for the residents, I think that'll be sufficient for us. This is just a kind of a placeholder for, if you will, for us, for our marketing purposes. This could very well just stay as a Crown Plaza as well.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be freshened up, but ideally more or less the same location.
Hi, this is Fred Levering. I'm on a phone, not on a laptop at the moment. I'm favorably impressed with the overall project. But experience says that when you have that many people, it's a big facility. When you have that many people together, there are inevitably going to be problems of one sort or another, certain challenges. In your experience and your expectations, what sort of problems do you expect to have and how are you equipped to deal with them? And I'm really relating to how, our EMS, fire, police, and the surrounding retail area would react to that.
So I guess I could take a part of this question. Maybe Eric, you could answer the rest of it, but just to make sure I understand, you're referring to the mix of uses as in the adult daycare, the hotel and residential. Is that you're mentioning that there were more people here now?
There's a lot of, in total, there's going to be quite a few people there. And when you have people together, people interact and things happen. I mean, it's just life. We have a couple of retirement communities in town. We've got a bunch of hotels. We have challenges with them that are unique to their own set of circumstances. And I'm just wondering what kind of things you expect to encounter and how are you equipped to deal with it? Do you have plans for in-house security or something? I mean, I'm just off the top of my head here.
Sure. So a couple of ways we can mitigate those challenges. First of all, first of all, the density of the use is going to be decreased, right? As Eric alluded to earlier, we're actually going to have less people here since we're combining hotel rooms and turning them into one-bedroom apartments. We're physically going to have less people here. So that's one plus. Second of all, in terms of the hotel operations, we're going to have a 24-hour man desk here. right? So we're gonna have somebody on the grounds, all hours every single day. So if something was to happen, there is always eyes in the street, for lack of a better word, right? In terms of the housing component, there's going to be a very, very seasoned multifamily third-party property manager, and they're trained for Section 42 housing management. It's a very unique sort of certification that allows them to be, much more vigilant when dealing with a particular type of group of people. Since we have senior residents here, they will have to have experience in managing similar facilities. So having them on the staff will be a big plus. And then, obviously, like I said before, we have Commonwealth and SarahCare, both very experienced operators that will have, staff as well to make sure that there are no major issues or flare-ups, as you mentioned, to make sure to mitigate any potential concerns. The adult daycare facility is also going to be only open from 8 to 5, so you're not going to necessarily see a lot of traffic past 5 o'clock, 6 p.m. I suppose. So it's going to decrease in intensity of use as the time passes. Eric, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to add, which I want to confirm, Andy, is I guess I thought in part the answer to that question is the high-rise component would be no different than if it were in a district where residential were allowed. And I think you mentioned last time, Andy, there is a division that the hotel and high-rise component don't naturally mix.
Correct. If you go back to the previous next slide, you can see the floor plan.
That's an important component.
Thank you, Eric. It's actually very helpful. Yes, you're right. That's exactly right. So the tower that we keep referring to, is going to remain as a hotel. So to your previous signage question, more than likely you're going to have a hotel brand sign where it was before previously. That's facing the street. The Resi entrance will be on the back, as you can see that sort of backwards L shape, darker red, is going to have a separate entrance and separate parking lot, right? So as you can see, the two users, or actually three users, are never going to share an entrance or share a lobby. Everything internally is going to be bifurcated, separate vertical and horizontal circulation, and separate lobbies, right? So that should help mitigate some of those other concerns you raised, mixing different users and different times of day. Hopefully that answers your question.
Who actually manages the entire property? Is it like a condominium, or how does that work?
Good question. It is a condominium. So there will be, like I said, a third party, very experienced property manager. We're talking to Ludwig right now. They're, national property manager for affordable senior multifamily housing. We're using them in other locations around the portfolio as well. And then for the hotel, it will be Commonwealth Hotels. They will have their own staff to oversee the hotel 24/7.
Who actually titles the property?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you said titles?
Yeah, who actually owns the whole thing, the whole ball of wax? Is
Well,
there a single owner, or are there multiple owners under the condominium agreement?
No, it'll be one ownership, but we'll have two separate condos for the purposes of financing. So
Okay.
there'll be different sources of financing, different components. For the affordable housing, there'll be affordable tax credits, as I mentioned earlier, and bond financing. And for the hotel, it'll be a different type of a loan. It's more of a capital structure rather than separate owners.
Well, to be clear, Andy, too, the restaurant use is another unit. Am I correct? And that has a separate owner.
Correct, but that has been the case since prior to our engagement.
So right now there's two units. One is the hotel that's owned by one entity. My understanding is the restaurant is the other condo unit that's owned by a separate development entity. And then the change here would be the hotel component would be two units, but both acquired by you, correct, Andy?
Correct.
Yeah.
Eric, you had brought up the restaurant. Now that entity, is that for the residents, or is that for the hotel guests?
No, the restaurant unit, Andy, is the freestanding restaurant that is there, correct?
Correct. We actually have Justin here, the seller, on the line
Yeah.
as well. If Justin, if you want to add any more color to that, since you have the most historical knowledge.
Yes, the freestanding restaurant, which is Mission Barbecue, is not part of the transaction. That was condoed and sold off many years ago. So there
No,
is a,
Justin, I'm referring to the restaurant that is in the hotel across.
Oh.
the-
okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah,
Andy, you can enter them.
yeah, that's going to be part of the hotel operator's oversight. So it'll be refurbished to a certain degree, up to the hotel brand standards. But we'll do some market research, figure out the right menu, the right mix of seats and bar accommodations, and we'll keep it operating. That's the plan.
So that'll still stay as a 3-meal per day operation as it is today.
I can't speak to that right now. That's really going to be up to Commonwealth. They're the hotel management expert, but they'll definitely explore, the most efficient operations possible. That's the idea. As we mentioned before, the hotel was struggling prior to COVID. I think I've alluded to this earlier, but I think, Eric, we included some stats in here as well, right?
Yeah, those slides are in there.
Yeah. So if we actually go back down a few more slides. I'm sorry, we have a few more pages here we didn't get to. Can you keep going, please? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Sorry, a lot of slides. Keep going. There we go. Okay. You can see here for yourself that the hotel was struggling well before COVID came along, right? These occupancy rates, it's not a bright future. So, we want to really, do our best to optimize the space that we have. And like I said, I would defer to Commonwealth to their experience to figure out what the best operation process would be, whether it's 2 meals, 3 meals. I really don't want to speak out of turn. Hopefully I could answer that question next time when I speak to them, get a little more color.
Does Commonwealth operate it now?
Is Commonwealth operating now? Currently, no, they're not. Justin's team is currently still operating the hotel.
Okay.
But once we close, again, good question. Once we close, we do intend to take over operations and run the hotel at a limited capacity while we're completing our pre-development process, as we're getting our building permits, taking all the steps required to get through the pre-development process. We will have a hotel running to maintain the equipment, maintain the back of house, make sure everything's running smoothly, and really, frankly, train the staff so that they're ready once we reopen the doors after our renovation.
And what were banquet rooms, if we're ever permitted to have banquets again in this world, would be under the direction of the hotel management.
Correct, exactly. That's what I was alluding to before. So you still have that space available to you for special events, gatherings, whenever we are able to leave our houses. Yep.
Our pod.
Yeah. I have my cat over here making noises. I'm trying to keep him quiet. So I'm sorry for your background.
Well, what's next for us, John?
I don't know. Do you have more of your presentation to go through?
I think that's, I was really highlighting the major changes. This is one of the slides we've added since we last spoke. We just try to answer all of your questions from our last discussion in December. I want to make sure to bring Merle in to answer your specific adult daycare questions. And Justin's here as well, obviously, to answer any questions regarding the hotel. So I think, it's really up to you. It's, we'd like to know where to go next and continue this process. We're really excited about this project and the team's ready to go, and we want to start drawing our construction documents. But again, we need your initial approvals first. Guidance.
Yeah. If I could jump in real quick, Annie. Yeah, I think we are at for us. This is probably our first, Fisher cut bait point because. Fairly soon, we would need to be able to know that we'd be working with the borough to have an ordinance change that, to me, primarily is to allow this residential component in the zoning district, because the residential component's not allowed, but also allow the adult daycare and allow this blend of uses. I think we've concluded from the beginning, and in our review and my discussions with your solicitor and then with Michelle Bear, that we need the borough's assistance, because this use just is not permitted in the district right now. Yet, our take on it was it's not far of a departure for the location. Changing a hotel, a portion of a hotel to a 55 and older residential component is hopefully something that's attractive. It saves a building that as Andy and Justin have mentioned, need revitalization. But our thought was that we'd be hoping to come out from your committee meeting with a favorable outlook that the borough should begin to work with us to create an ordinance that that doesn't open this up unreasonably to things the borough wouldn't want, but would allow a redevelopment project of that sort. So that's where we're hoping to be, based on my discussions with Michelle and and the solicitor previously. So but certainly, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. We want everybody to be comfortable, but our hope is that we're at that point where we can get favorable feedback. So at some point, we'll be going to a public hearing at council and having them pass an amendment that would open the door to a use like this in this district.
So Michelle or Chris, how would we go about that if the committee, which I don't see, I can only speak for myself, but I'd rather see something there than nothing there. And so Chris or Michelle, what's the procedure here?
Well,
and what's the timeline as well?
Well, clearly the committee doesn't have the authority to bind council, and the committee doesn't have the authority to amend the zoning ordinance. But what I hear Eric saying is, based on what this committee has heard now in at least 2 presentations, is there a generally favorable opinion about the proposal, in which case I would ask for authorization to work with Michelle and Eric to develop an ordinance that would make the project possible. So I guess that would be the official action that I would suggest you consider today is, do you want me and Michelle to work on a draft ordinance with Eric?
Okay, I'd like to say something. I have a question, and I apologize for not being at last month's meeting. I was playing in the snow at my restaurant, but anyway, are there, and I read this last PowerPoint or whatever, are women going to be housed there as well?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I just wanted to know. And
yeah, no, our target audience, sorry, I'm not sure if it's me or not, there's a little background noise. Can you hear me okay? All right.
Yeah.
The target audience is, like I said, it's age restricted housing. We're going to be focusing on veterans, but as long as the people coming to the site are income and age qualified, they're able to be part of the facility. So it will be open to the rest of the community at large, regardless whether or not they're veterans. But our focus and marketing will be heavily on veterans, both men and women. We cannot discriminate. It's against FHA laws. So we'll have to keep, we're going to be keeping our doors open to everyone that qualifies to be a part of the facility.
Yeah. The only discrimination you're allowed to make is to create this as age restricted.
Right. For safety purposes. Yep.
So
John,
typically,
I agree with you that I'd rather see something there than nothing. But I think where Fred was going was we just want to make sure this doesn't turn into a larger scale in at Reading, where we're tying up infrastructure resources, the police, on a regular basis and even on a bigger scale. But I agree with you. It's better than nothing, and it should be used and salvaged. But well, I hate to see it turn into that.
Yeah, me too. Hey, the one person that's on the committee that couldn't make the meeting is sent an email. I guess I don't know if the whole committee got it. I presume they did, but he had a concern: is affordable housing, is that a code name for low income? And the reason I ask is you talk about public meetings, and I'd like to know before the fact instead of after the fact, when council members are getting pummeled with questions we don't know the answer to. I'd rather know them ahead of time.
Yep. So the question is whether or not it's affordable housing is
low income.
What type of, I guess there are different types of affordable housing. So what we're focusing on here is income restricted housing. So this is not Section 8 or any kind of a VASH voucher. Just want to make sure we're clear here. We are focusing on people that make a certain income that's based on area median income averages. So we're going to range independent. This is, again, we need to do more market studies to really own in the numbers, but we'll range between 40 to 80% AMI. So blending at 60% AMI, right? Area median income. So as long as you fit the criteria, you will be eligible to be in this facility. This is not a facility that's going to be accepting vouchers of any kind. That's not what we're offering here. Like I said before, we are our mission was to provide sustainable, safe and sound housing that provide a social outlet for senior veterans rather. And this particular, this type of asset class tends to convert well to this type of facility. That was the original plan. We're not looking to bring in families here. This is really meant for singles and maybe couples. The unit mix is primarily 1 bedrooms and studios, so it's not necessarily going to be a concern for the community, right? It's really meant to be providing housing, dignified housing for senior veterans that need the support. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And the people that are in the facility, how often do they get out? Do they go to restaurants? Do they, go to the mall?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, they're going to be employed residents. I mean, we're doing income verification for them to move in, and they're going to have disposable income. They're getting income or rents that are, capped by the particular county based on the income, right, requirements. So I would imagine have disposable income. I mean, the idea is that, they will have opportunity to, and it's a very commercial area too, which helps, right? It doesn't require a car. You can actually walk to a restaurant if you need to. There are plenty of restaurants right nearby. But no, the idea is these would be, folks that are working in the community that would frequent all the local establishments around.
Chris.
Related to that, if I could, just a quick question. What would be your rental structure? Is, the terms of rents and the length of occupancy that you're anticipating? I mean, one of the concerns would be, if these are short-term rentals and there's a lot of turnover, it's a different population than one which is stable and longer-term occupancy.
Right. Fair question, and good question as well. And again, there are a number of different types of affordable housing or subsidized housing, and I want to make sure we're very clear. This is traditional multifamily housing. This is not short-term rental. This is traditional 12-month leases. That may go longer, depending on the tenant, but traditional multifamily, not transitional housing, not month to month. This is not what we're doing. So, there'll be a normal lease. There'll be income verification every year. The tenants need to provide to make sure they're still within the bands of AMI, because we want to make sure to provide the need where it's needed most.
Chris, a question for the operation of the borough and how it deals with this is brought about because of the changed of 2 wings of that to residence, permanent residence, so to speak.
Mhm.
And we have to do something to allow that insofar as zoning is concerned. Is that correct?
Yes, you would need to, the borough would need to modify the ordinance. I think your solicitor would say the same thing, to permit the residential component, the hotel to be switched to what is essentially apartment complex for that portion of it, because that is not permitted in this district at this time. Correct,
Yeah,
Chris?
I
Yeah.
agree. That's the essential issue from a zoning standpoint.
Yeah, because everything else insofar as occupancy or traffic, public traffic through the place, through the course of history of that building on that site, when there were banquet facilities there and when there were meetings there and seminars and so forth, there was a lot of traffic in and out of there. I don't think the stress is on the borough services is any worse than it had been. Matter of fact, probably less than it was at its peak. I mean, I can remember doing traffic duty over there when like the Boy Scouts of whatever was having a meeting there and they had an outpouring of people leaving at one time, and the driveway situation was such that it was a little congested. So I don't view whatever is being proposed there to be a major change, probably less stress insofar as infrastructure and everything else is concerned. So if the task for the borough to permit this to happen, if council so desires, it would change an ordinance to allow a portion of it to be residential, I presume. Is that correct, Chris? An overlay district or something?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I would want to work with Michelle and Eric and the borough engineer to see if there are any dimensional regulations or anything that would also be impacted by the proposal. But I would say the key zoning issue is the residential use not being allowed under the current zoning, and an amendment would be required to allow that.
And that amendment certainly would prevent, for example, it could be crafted so that it couldn't be the transient housing that Andy has indicated they are not, and that the borough is not in favor of. Chris, correct? I mean, that doesn't seem to me to be a hurdle.
No, I agree. And I think we would also want to put some boundaries on how much of the property could be utilized for the residential use, so it would only be a certain number of units or a certain percentage. I mean, we would want to put some limits on it so that, I guess what I'm getting at is I don't want the entire property to become housing without further approval by the borough. So I would want only this section that is proposed to be residential to be permitted to be residential with the zoning amendment that we would consider at this time.
Makes sense.
I have another question. Is this a non-smoking facility?
It's a good question too. In my experience over the last 5-10 years, more and more new multifamily projects have gone non-smoking overall, at least on the interior, and have created some designated smoking areas outside on the common grounds. I would imagine we follow the same protocol here. That's more than likely the case. So maybe there'll be some smoking areas that are designated outside, but I would think the interior would probably not.
And where would those smoking areas be? Because the reason I ask is I drive by a retirement facility almost every day, and there's always a crew of people sitting in lawn chairs outside smoking, and it's not too attractive.
Got it. We'll definitely address that concern. It's a good question. We haven't really dug into the specifics of the site plan yet with George and his team, and design team, but we'll definitely find a way to make a discrete area that is not visible from the street and is not going to cause any concern for the hotel visitors as well on the other side of the entrance. But I appreciate that concern. We'll address it.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, where do we go from here? Do we need a motion from a member of the committee to?
John, it's Fred again. May I ask a question? Michelle, as our point person in economic development, what is your take on this? How do you see it complicating life for your endeavors when working with other developers and brokers and so on? in the general vicinity and the borough as a whole. But, how do you feel about this?
I agree with John and Keith's statement of this property's been on the market for over a year. This is the first party that's, reached out and expressed any type of serious interest in redeveloping it. I see the affordable housing piece being a good thing for the surrounding businesses. Chris and I had a conversation after the last meeting in December, and he made a very valid point that it's usually not common that you see the workers that are in retail stores, restaurants making that wage being able to live in close proximity to where those locations are. So, you have a use where people could live and walk or bike to their actual job if they chose to have one. I think that's a plus for the community. I think that this would, hopefully reinvigorate that site and maybe in turn spur some redevelopment of surrounding commercial properties is a good thing. And again, no one else has come in with any type of serious interest to do anything with this site. So I'd rather move forward with this with some guidelines and regulations in place that limit the residential piece moving forward, have a smart design through the land development process, and see something thrive there.
Thank you.
Does anybody else on the committee have any more questions?
Yeah, one, and Fred kind of jumped on this a little bit, Michelle. I'm trying to look at this as an umbrella of the entire area, city of Reading included. We don't have a lot of, other than the DoubleTree, there's not much right now. And my concern is, if we do this, what's going to attract other people to come to Wyomissing, and wish to stay, or businesses to hold their meetings. Now, granted, yes, we're in a COVID situation now, but that's not going to last forever. Not all hotels are going to shut down. People are going to start traveling again. So
Right.
I just want to know where we stand in hospitality, if you will, where we're going to be with the rest of the county, specifically the city. And if you've heard some things of any concern along the Park Road corridor, that something may be in fruition.
So I'd like to respond to that in two ways. After the December meeting, I did reach out to Crystal Sites from Pennsylvania's Americana region, AKA the County Convention and Tourism Bureau. She reached out to a Butler County hotel that has a veteran housing location aside of a hotel. So similar to this, the only component it's not that Butler County hotel doesn't have is the senior daycare. The CVB president of that hotel said it actually helped bringing in guests to the area, and no one complains about it being right aside of the housing. Crystal also made the point, because the hotel is a site of veteran housing, it could potentially be a boon for attracting military groups to the region. So I think that's something to consider. I've not heard anything about Park Road other than Crystal also did some intel and digging for me on the Inn at Reading specific. The owner of that property has indicated he has no interest in selling or doing anything other than what he's currently doing. So,
excuse me.
That's unfortunate, but I think my hope is once we adopt the overlay that will include the Quality Inn and the Inn at Reading, there may be a different chain of thought going on there when he sees that it may be financially beneficial to him to consider selling or partnering with someone who wants to do something better than what's being done there now.
I have a question for Bill, just to understand, your question, and that is, are you more concerned about the banquet activities or the hotel room availability? Or is it both?
It's both, Chris, you know, I mean, other than the DoubleTree, we don't have anything. I mean, and, you know, we're trying to attract people to this part of, the county, and, I'm just, you know, concerned that the attraction is not going to be there anymore.
Well, Bill, when you look at the numbers of the occupancy rate from 2017 to 2019, an average of 44%, that's not sustainable. So I don't know where you think all these people were for the last 3 years, but they weren't at the Sheraton for the Crown Plaza.
And I think it's a very good point, John, that you raised. I just want to add to that. Essentially, what we're doing is right-sizing the hotel to be more efficient. We understand your concern. We're keeping the meeting spaces intact. We're upgrading the restaurant, making it more efficient, as you mentioned, but really just right-sizing the hotel to become a more profitable business so it can maintain, keep the lights on. But more importantly, look, we're in a situation where if there's a need down the road, 10, 20 years from now, the community needs a bigger hotel, you're always able to go back and resize it back to a full-size hotel, right? So it's, you have that flexibility in your zoning to do so. You're not stuck with something, in perpetuity. The infrastructure is already there, right? We're not adding anything new. We're not adding rooms. We're not, extending any additional sewer lines, keeping everything intact. So it's a sustainable adaptive reuse project and gives you the most flexibility down the road.
I think you're right, John. At those rates, it's not sustainable, which means it could turn into something else that we don't want it to if somebody doesn't buy it and develop it properly. So this certainly looks like a really good option on the table, far better than what it could turn into. Just make it a package deal, Michelle. They got to take the Unit Ready with
it. Bill, insofar as you're concerned about hotels, we have a new residence inn that's going up.
No, I understand that. I just, this is a new concept. Yes, there's professional groups involved in it and personnel. I guess I'm just hesitant of being the, we're going to be the guinea pigs of all this since one of these is not in operation yet. So that's just my personal thought.
John, one final comment from me, and then whatever we ought to do to move on. The concept does nothing to change the footprint on anything else other than the fact that it is going to be permanent residence that is not permitted in use. Otherwise, the impact on the area, I mean, it would be different if we were going to put so many units for 55 plus veteran living next to properties of half or $250,000 in value and so forth. This is in an area that doesn't seem to have any impact by what's going to be happening there.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else have any questions for anybody? So Chris, how do you think we ought to make this motion to recommend to council that the Economic Development Committee's in favor of the project as we see it?
Well, I think that's a motion right there, just to recommend to council the favorable opinion of the project and to recommend that the solicitor and your zoning officer and engineer work on a proposal for a zoning amendment to allow the project to move forward.
Somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll recommend to council. And for the developers, Chris or Michelle, what do you think the timeline is? How long, if council goes for this, how long could it take for us to give them the approval they need?
Best case scenario, 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
And none of this is considered nonprofit, correct?
Not, I'm sorry. Based off the conversation at last month's meeting, not nonprofit in the sense that they'd be taking any portion of the property off the tax rolls, no.
Correct.
All right. Thank you for the clarification in the presentation. I guess we can move on to what's going on in West Reading.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Morning.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
How's everybody doing this morning? Oh, that was an interesting meeting.
You should have put you first.
I know, I'm going to keep this quick. So we just completed our 5-year plan, and we've got a number of things that we're going to work on. One is expanding our business district, implementing design standards, going to be promoting placemaking, and promoting infill and redevelopment. When I say expanding the business district, we're looking to develop 6th Avenue, which is where Chef Allen's is, and Diller's, kind of going down there, trying to encourage retail down that area. We've had numerous talks with Chip, and he's looking to do some kind of facial repairs on his building and kind of upgrade it a little bit. We're on the hunt for a good tenant for him, but we'd also like to see him take that 6th Avenue side of his business and kind of turn it out as well, so that it's not the back of a building, that it would be also some entrances to whatever goes in there in the future. The idea is to take it down 6th Avenue and then start to encourage retail or businesses in general on Reading Avenue. There are half a dozen businesses there right now, but if we're to grow our business district, that's the most logical direction to go. So we're going to start walking in that direction. And we are also looking to put in a pocket park there between Diller's and Chef Allen's, between Court and Penn Avenue. So a half a block area where we'll have a public space that'll be permanently blocked from traffic, where we can host events, let's say a Christmas tree lighting, or we can have summertime concerts, things like that, that'll already have electric, it'll have lighting, and we don't have to bug the borough every time we want to shut the street down. Probably our farmers market will end up there as well. So, you know, some of the best downtown areas have public spaces, and we really have none. So we're trying to create something with the space that we have. Implement this.
Go ahead.
Okay. Design standards is the next thing, and it's actually one of the things we're working on first. We're working with, or we're picking a marketing company to kind of help us rebrand West Reading. There are a number of reasons we want to do that, but we'd like to, we've grown up and we want to have some branding that represents who we are today. We've identified our 3 strengths as entertainment, arts, and health. The health is kind of a clunky one in there. Arts and entertainment kind of work together, but the health aspect is there for a number of reasons. One, we've got a hospital that's right there, but there are a lot of businesses that spin off of that hospital, including even the Farmhouse Kitchen or Pilates or, you know, oxygen, standard oxygen, et cetera. So that's something that we want to work into our branding and our messaging. And then at that point, we're going to create some more unified signage and work on promotional elements. I think we've done a great job of promoting West Reading to Berks County, but we're at a point now where we'd like to promote our area outside. And, you know, Lancaster does a great job of promoting outside their area. some areas in Allentown, but I don't know that we've done a great job of promoting ourselves outside of Berks County. So that's kind of an end goal for us. Placemaking, we've got our mural walks and we're looking to do more public art. I'd like to move beyond murals. We've got over 30 murals, I think actually closer to 40 murals right now in West Reading. And I could see us moving into sculptures or lighting or, some of the areas have interesting crosswalks. Even as you drive into Reading, the crosswalks that they have as you first enter Reading have an interesting look to them. So there are some opportunities there for us to kind of develop West Reading into an arts and entertainment community. And then promoting infill and redevelopment. That, we've identified some areas, Delaney Circle being one, that has a lot of open space that, and that circle there is actually a huge area that's not utilized at all. So we're taking a look at possibly doing some building there. We need to figure out parking, and we'd like to work on a parking structure someplace. We've talked to Chip about adding a parking structure to his property that he seems open to, but we don't have as much control with that property as we would with our borough-owned properties. So we're taking a look at that and some adaptive reuse on that area. We've got the Chocolate District, we're calling it the Chocolate District, down where Palmer's is. And they have almost a square block of property that's been sitting vacant for quite some time. And we think that would be a great property to do some sort of, I don't want to call it a high rise, but a larger building for residential with everything that's happening with the medical school and UGI and all that. Property values are slowly coasting up, mainly because people are buying them as rental units. And, you can get a premium for rentals right now in our area. And so that's one of the things our consultant said, that we are underserved in the rental unit area. So anyway, we'd like to create some more development in that area. If you look at home prices in West Reading and you start at Wyomissing and you go down to 2nd Avenue, property values slowly decrease as you get towards 2nd Avenue. So we'd like to take that area and fix it up and try to even out housing prices in the area. The good news is housing prices have gone up over 10% in the last year. So, property values are on the rise for sure. We've seen an increase. When I first looked at it, 127,000 was the average price in West Reading. We're now up, well over 130. I think we might be closer to 139 right now in average home prices. So that's good. The average home price in Pennsylvania is closer to 187. So I'd like to get it up closer to the average home price in Pennsylvania. I think that's where West Reading is. I think it's very, it's not a Wyomissing and it's not a Reading. It's right in the middle. And I think we've got a lot of room to grow. So we're excited for what we've got in front of us and how we can grow our community. Any questions?
So the whole circle scheme, some of the meetings I went to with you guys, one of the plans was to not make that a circle. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so is that on the drawing board, or?
It's something we're talking about. There are a few things we need to do. We need to do a study first to see what utilities are below that property. Like, can we even build on top of it to start with? We need to do a traffic study to understand actually how that will affect things. And then, I don't know if it's a big task or not, but finding a developer who actually has an interest in doing something there. So there are a number of things that we need to do before we're taking those steps forward. But it's, one of those rare borough-owned areas that we could generate some cash for the borough, create some infill. Randy Piers, when he was here, one of his recommendations to us was to create more density in West Reading so that more people are walking and shopping. Our shopping district, I think it's great. It's probably the best in Berks County, but that's not to say that anybody's getting rich owning a shop in West Reading. People are getting by. And one of the reasons, and as you drive down the avenue, look to see how many people are walking on Penn Avenue. There aren't really a ton. I mean, there are a few, but not enough to support the retail that we'd like to see happen.
Yeah, I think your point's well taken about Lancaster County, especially. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was at Lidditz on Saturday night. So we're just crawling with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're kind of handcuffed because the hotel revenue, which we added that 1% for, there just isn't any.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we need to do a better job in West Reading. I think we need to up our game. As we're working on the design standards, that's also going to include signage and facade guidelines. So when somebody new comes in, they're encouraged to do something that is in line with who we are as a community. And I can't tell you what that is today because that's what we're working on right now. But we want to have a look and a feel, and all the places we love to travel to, we travel to because we know who they are as a community. Whether it's a Nantucket or Carmel, California, or even a New Hope. So that's something that we need to really develop ourselves if we want to be a draw to outside tourists. One of the things I like about tourism in general, and why I think that's an important focus for us, is when you go on vacation, you leave your mind at home when it comes to spending money. You will spend a ridiculous amount for a cocktail or even a coffee and not think twice about it. But when you're at home, you're much more conservative. So I'd like to see more tourist dollars.
Any questions for Mark?
Mark,
Okay.
I have one. It's Michelle. Sorry, John. Are you noticing any long-term issues, like any of the vacancies that were not necessarily caused by COVID, but came about during COVID? Are you, seeing any issues with long-term vacancies or unusual requests for new types of businesses outside of the norm?
Thankfully, no. I think, the hard work that the borough has done developing West Reading over the last 20 years has paid off at this time. We lost 8 businesses and we've gained 19 businesses. So, those new businesses that we've gained, the only odd bird in there is maybe the freshwater fish tank business. I don't know that he needs to be in a high retail area, but other than that, everybody else is a great use. We've got some new people, Finch and Fern, which is home decorating. Sailor House moved down the block. We've got we're going to have a pottery, like bake your own pottery place, like a maker space popping up soon. So no, we've been lucky that way. I think, I think COVID has helped us out in the regards that people that were all of a sudden out of work and maybe found a little extra money or now are working from home and have a little extra time have started thinking about opening up the business that they've always wanted to, or that they've always dreamed about. So I think that has benefited us actually.
That's great.
Yeah. So hopefully the economy comes back and, those businesses thrive. I'd hate for them to open and then in a year and a half from now close because it didn't work out for them.
Okay. Hey, Mark, thanks for coming and sitting through the first part of the presentation.
It was very interesting. I wasn't quite sure until the very end what they were actually doing in terms of mixed use with that, but I'm sure it'll be a good addition.
Well, hopefully. Any other questions or comments for Mark?
Mark, if you don't mind just sticking around, I want to give them a quick update on the bike route. So just in case you have anything to add in advance of the traffic meeting in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Well,
Thanks,
then
guys.
go ahead, Michelle.
The only miscellaneous item I have is that, continuing to get the exhibits and legal agreements in place with Chris's office for the private property owner pieces the bike route will travel over. I reached out to Mark and Nick and Bezzy, I think that was last week, just to confirm where West Reading would like their bike share station to go. And it sounds like it's going to be within the public right of way on Reading Avenue. So that will hopefully also help, attract some tires/feet to that part of West Reading and then into Wyomissing. And I do have a follow-up meeting with Alvernia's Bike Share Task Force tomorrow, along with Kelly Hoyt Rupert from Movatics, to continue the discussion with Alvernia about possibly tying into our bike share station route.
Is that it?
That's it.
It seems like this is a circuitous path to get this accomplished, but I appreciate your efforts on staying on top of it. I know it's near and dear to your heart. So, does anybody have anything else? I'd just like to say one thing, that our friend George Haynes from Equus, he hasn't forgotten about Wyomissing or West Reading. And he's thinking outside the box and trying to do his thing. So he's still, a friend of ours, and I think remains an asset going forward. And that's all I'd like to say about that. Does anybody
agree
else
with
in the committee have anything else?
He was a good guy to work with.
Yeah. Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you,
Thank
one
you.
and all.
Thanks, John.
Stay healthy.